Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to the AT3 State Financing Zoom meeting. I'm Marty Exline, the director of the AT3 Center, and today we wanted to talk a little bit about, I'd been talking a little bit with Anna Magnuson from the, I want to say Iowa Able. It's force of habit, but I'll let you talk about your new moniker and some of the things going on in your program. But we wanted to highlight, maybe take a program, either one or two programs in our meetings and highlight something that's going on with them that's new, whether a new program or new project or something along those lines. And Anna and I were talking about her adopted strategic plan, including a sponsorship with Vision Bank to create their first forgivable loan program. And so Anna's going to take some time to talk a little bit about that program and what's involved with that and what's involved with that. And then we want to take some time to kind of open it up to everybody to talk about what else might be going on in their program for the rest of the meeting. If you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and then later on we'll also let people raise their hand if they have a question, and go ahead and unmute them. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Anna.
Okay, great. So I'm going to do the Zoom thing and share my screen. Great. So thank you so much for inviting us, Marty, to come and talk today. So we started off at the Iowa Able Foundation, and then, oh dear. There we are. So I'm Anna, and I started in 2018. And before we started, I was talking with Paige in South Dakota. And what I loved about Paige was talking about how passionate he is about the work that we do, and that we want to make a difference in the lives of others. And just like Paige, that's one of the reasons why I loved being part of the Iowa Able Foundation. I'd moved back home to my home state in Iowa from living in England. But the job really interested me when I saw the job description, because I didn't know anything about an alternative financing program and ATs and assistive technology centers. But I was interested in how our organization was designed to be able to help individuals that may have obstacles in receiving financing to help them get assistive technology. So I started in 2018. And that's the office mascot, my dog Floyd, who's there, and he's in the office a lot now thanks to COVID-19. But I've really enjoyed being part of the organization since 2018, and a lot of changes have happened in the last couple of years, which we'll share with you. But before I go into that, I wanted to introduce Danielle. So Danielle, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So my name is Danielle Brownwolf, and I'm the AVP of Marketing and Communications for a company called Vision Bank of Iowa. My job here is to oversee all of our advertising, customer and emergency communications, our media, as well as community donations, staff volunteering, and our financial education efforts, which are the three things that brought me into contact with Anna and the, forgive me, I'm going to say Iowa Able Foundation a lot during this presentation, but the Able Up Iowa Foundation all the way back in 2019.
Yeah, so we're all getting used to that, and we'll talk more about that partnership with Vision Bank. But I just wanted to walk through the journey that's happened over the last couple of years of where we were and how Vision Bank helped us move forward. So for those of you who don't know, 1993 was when Iowa Able Foundation was established in 1993 by the Iowa Program for Assistive Technology to help low-income Iowans with disabilities get access to assistive technology. So that's when we started in 1993. And you all know, in the audience, I'm speaking to people who already know what assistive technology is. But before, I'm just going to go and say, so in 1993 we were started, and 2003 is when we turned into a 501c3 and become a nonprofit regulated lender. So the organization was started with a private-public partnership to be able to provide the funding to get us started. And the organization depended primarily on the interest rates for the operating dollars and receive some corporate grants to be able to do the lending dollars. So my background is I used to work for Habitat for Humanity. And for those of you who are familiar with Habitat for Humanity, the mortgage funds become a revolving fund to help do more homes for Habitat for Humanity. And so the concept for Iowa Able Foundation, I understood that. So those loan funds were to be able to be a revolving loan fund to help more Iowans access the financing to proceed to get their assistive technology needs. When I started in 2018, and again, all those great things that happened with our organization were helpful, but as I went out and talked to internal and external stakeholders about our organization, there were many things that were obstacles for us to be able to move forward to really serve Iowans to our best ability. One is that no one knew about our organization. So when I moved back here in 2018, I grew up here, and several people asked me, well, where did you land? And I said the Iowa Able Foundation, and no one had heard of our organization. So even people who had been in Ames for 30 years didn't know where we were and who we were. Now, if I had said we are behind the Dunkin' Donuts on Sheldon, they definitely knew where the Dunkin' Donuts was. They just didn't know about us. So that was one of our obstacles. The second is that from talking to other stakeholders and those that could be potentially community partners, did not feel that we were being helpful as a nonprofit because our interest rates were too high. So our interest rates moved with the prime, so it was usually +2 and moved with the prime accordingly. But for those that we were our target population, that interest rate, which hovered between 9.25 and maybe 11%, which was just so high for those that we were seeking to serve. So the interest rates were a problem. And the other problem was that we started a financial coaching program, and that was because we knew that those who couldn't afford the interest rate, they needed some assistance to be able to move from point A to point Z. So we would offer the financial coaching, and people would participate, but they would think it was because they would automatically qualify for a loan. And so having those disconnected programs was problematic because individuals did not participate in the financial coaching program. And so we were in many ways bleeding out because we were paying financial coaches and it wasn't generating any loans really. So that's where we were. So we were looking at how do we move forward and what was the need for financial education and credit building opportunities. So in 2019, our organization asked volunteers to help us be able to shape our strategic plan and move forward. But we needed those subject matter experts to help us to figure out what do we need from a financial empowerment, financial education point of view, and the Vision and Mission Committee, which helped us with looking at our programs from the ground up. And these individuals were key to helping us be able to put forth a strategic plan that our board adopted later that year. But had we not done the work, I don't think that our strategic plan would have been adopted because it was pretty radical in the changes that we were proposing. So what were the things that we were proposing? The enhanced financial coaching program. So instead of just having the financial coaches where it was just the basic financial skills, we wanted to enhance that program, which included resource counseling. And that means that there were many of our population that needed help accessing community resources. So we have a specific financial coach that is responsible for helping with that. With credit coaching, making sure that if there were issues with their credit scores and being able to help them move forward with their credit scores. And the benefits planning. So one of the things as we went out to talk to potential applicants and donors is that if somebody sustains a CFO, sustains a spinal cord injury, she doesn't need to know what a spending plan is. She knows what that is, but she might not know how to navigate through the bureaucracy of getting access to her benefits planning. And so we wanted to be able to customize it to the person of what does that person need to be able to improve their financial situation. The other thing is that we wanted to look at our interest rates because that was a problem. And so I talked to a couple of bankers and I learned this really cool term called an inverted risk rating. So I was like, I don't know what that is, but I get it when you say it's a sliding scale interest rate. And that's what we proposed to our board of 5 different levels. And you would qualify based on income, credit score, capacity to pay, and a debt to income ratio and a couple other factors. And so our interest rates were broken down rather than just one set interest rate. The other thing that we wanted to do is combine our loan program, the interest rate, with our financial empowerment program. And I met Danielle and Vision Bank at a FDIC conference that invited about, I think it was 150 participants to talk about how do we bring financial education to our communities and how do we collaborate. And from that FDIC meeting, the things that we realized that are the obstacles for people participating in financial education programs, one, time, transportation, childcare, and the willingness to do it, because there's a lot of shame that's connected to being in a financially vulnerable situation. So the way that we address that in our Vision and Mission Committee and our Financial Empowerment Committee is we linked our loan program to our financial education program. So when we talk to applicants, we now say, when they ask about our interest rates, we say our interest rates fall between 5% and 9%, and you will take in your application and see where you fall. If you participate in our financial empowerment program, which is creating a financial, what we call it, a personalized empowerment program plan, then if you participate in that and complete the requirements that you've set, because it's a team, you and I are going to be able to figure out what those milestones look like, then after a set period of time, your interest rates will drop if you meet those requirements. So it's an incentive to participate in our financial empowerment program, which is really breaking that cycle of poverty and being able to change those knowledge, skills, abilities, and attitudes to be able to move from a place of being financially vulnerable to financially empowered. And so that is how we unified those programs to be able to make sure that they were working together. We also realized we needed to expand our loan options. So beyond just assistive technology, that we realized looking at our applicants from a holistic point of view, if they were applying for a ramp, but their porch was broken, there's no point in getting financing for a ramp if you can't install it because the porch is broken. So we looked at looking at other ways of funding sources to be able to wrap those loans into making sure that we got what that applicant needed. And that goes same with the vehicle purchase loan. So we can do a modified vehicle purchase loan, but if the car is broken, they're not going to be able to go to appointments. And so again, making sure that we support the applicants in the best way we can that makes sense for their budget and also for their needs to achieve and maintain independence. So the big thing is that when we talked about, our board was not willing to go and be a grant program to give straight grants. And so we needed to problem solve to think about, well, how do we be able to meet those that can't even make a loan payment? And they have no way of being able to make a loan payment. So in the Vision and Mission Committee, one of the members said, well, why don't we do a forgivable loan? And the way the forgivable loan worked in concept was that their loan payment basically would be their participation in the financial empowerment program. And as long as they participated and met their milestone moments and completed their requirements, then each month we would have that loan forgiven. If they didn't participate and just completely failed in communication and meeting those requirements without explanation, then it turns into a traditional loan. And if they default on that, it would be a ding against their credit score. So it's incentive again to participate and communicate. It's a pretty novel concept other than we know about these forgivable loans, especially because of the PPP. But we also needed to figure out how do we do this. And so when I met Danielle and Virginia from Vision Bank, I was just recently doing a presentation about what the board had adopted and how we were moving forward. And after that meeting, Danielle and Virginia reached out to me to say, can could we set up an appointment to talk about how we might partner together? And I tell you, that was a happy day because I'm like, all right. So, and it was also what it gave to me is confirmation that we were on the right path to being able to help Iowans. If someone from Vision Bank, their team wanted to partner with us, then that gave us some street cred, as they say. So how does Vision Bank, so how did Vision Bank help? Well, they've done a couple things. I'm going to let Danielle talk about it, but just to brag about them a little bit. We sat down in that meeting to talk about how do we do this forgivable loan? What would be the criteria for participating in the forgivable loan that they were willing to sponsor? And we talked about that as far as doing the right thing about doing community engagement, about getting Community Reinvestment Act credit, and about demonstrating to our members that Vision Bank was behind them and supporting what we did. I'm going to stop there for a second because I was blithering on a little bit, but Danielle, do you want to talk a little bit more? And then I'll just again brag about that partnership started with that FDIC presentation that moved into the first sponsorship of our forgivable loan and then turned into so much more. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I do have an exciting result of Vision Bank being part of our organization that just happened yesterday. So I'm going to leave it on a little bit of a cliffhanger and let Danielle talk a little bit about the partnership and why she decided to approach us.
Yeah, thanks. So like Anna said earlier, Vision Bank is one of Iowa's largest independently owned financial institutions. Just to talk about us for just a second, we have 9 full service branches in Ames, Boone, Grimes, Huxley, Ogden, Waukee, and then a Vision Bank mortgage office out in West Des Moines. And, you know, when you think about a bank, you probably think of all the traditional services we offer, like full service retail, mortgage, consumer, commercial real estate, and agricultural deposit and lending products and services, which are great. We obviously do all of those things. But one of the things that makes Vision Bank such a great company to work for is the fact that we have a true commitment to our communities. We encourage all of our staff to go out and get involved in areas of the world that they're passionate about. And then as a bank, we provide additional volunteer services and financial support to these organizations, especially if they're organizations that promote either affordable housing, food security, community development, or my personal favorite, financial education. I have a personal passion for working with financial education. I think it's an area of expertise that often gets taken for granted. You know, if you grew up in a home with parents who had the means and the knowledge to have a good, solid financial portfolio, well, you're most likely going to grow up to have the means and the knowledge to have a good, solid financial portfolio yourself. But if you don't grow up in that environment, unfortunately, there really aren't that many places to learn about how to manage your money. And it took me coming here to work at a bank to realize that. So finding ways for Vision Bank to get out in front of people to share this information has been my personal passion project ever since. So as Anna indicated earlier, back in 2019, my colleague Virginia and I decided to redevelop Vision Bank's financial education and education outreach program. And one of the first steps that we took to do that was attend the Collaboration for Economic Inclusion and Financial Capability Forum, which is a very long title that was put on by the FDIC Corporation, which is where we met Anna to begin with. And since then, Vision Bank and the Bel Up Iowa Foundation have put together a pretty strong partnership. Vision Bank provided them with a donation back in June of 2020 to help them get their forgivable loan program off the ground, which blossomed a little bit further. We now have staff who assist with their marketing efforts a little bit, staff who are working to become financial coaches, and staff who serve on their board as well. So it's blossomed into quite a partnership here. But ultimately, we view Bel Up Iowa as an organization that's on a mission to provide financial education and financial security to individuals all across Iowa, which is a goal that we at Vision Bank full-heartedly understand and support. But it was ultimately that financial education piece, that providing individuals with the means to live their lives to the best of their ability. You know, that was ultimately why we as a bank chose to support the Iowa Able Foundation, Able Up Iowa Foundation, and why we will continue to support them in any way that we can moving forward.
Well, thank you, Danielle. And I'm so Danielle, so even though she keeps calling us Iowa Able Foundation, she actually was part of the inner circle when we went through, we decided to do everything, adopt a new strategic plan, launch our pilot programs, and do a whole rebranding initiative. And the rebranding initiative was because they're iAble accounts. And so we would get calls all the time thinking that we were the iAble accounts. So we got an in-kind donation from a marketing firm that helped us with coming up with the names. And we presented to Vision Bank the 3 possible names, and they were helpful in deciding which name we were going to pick, which is pretty exciting, which is Able Up Iowa, which I'll show you in the next slides what that looks like. But the other thing I wanted to thank Vision Bank for is because Virginia, who's on our board now, she helped us get a sign language interpreter for applicants to come in and be able to do our loan application review. And that was so critical because we tried to do this through email, but there's nothing like doing something. We did it spatially distanced loan application review meeting. And so it's just yesterday that the loan committee approved that loan. And they are over the moon happy. They will be participating in our financial empowerment program. And I know they're going to be incredibly successful. And they were happy that that Vision Bank is part of our partners. And the other story that I'll say is that just last weekend, Vision Bank, that forgivable loan for Vision Bank is for those with hearing impairment. And one of those first forgivable loans, she just called our financial empowerment director to say, you don't know this, but when I first applied, I was suicidal. She was getting ready to lose her job. She was worried about not having hearing aids to remain employed and find a new job. And she said, you guys, Able Up Iowa, helped be a support system for her as she moved through that process. And I'm really proud of that. And that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that Vision Bank sponsorship to help that. Because of their partnership and because of not only their technical assistance at Vision Bank, and also they helped us with our PPP loan and were incredibly helpful. When we received a grant, we moved it to Vision Bank because that consolidates our forgivable loan dollars to be able to make it easy. And it has been, it has resulted in 2019 received 56 applications. In 2020, we received 173 applications and are continuing to move forward in spite of a pandemic, being able to be successful because we're able to have the capacity to help Iowans. So this is our new logo and name. It's Able Up Iowa. I don't know why, well, there's fast, but there it is. And then these are the ways that we can help, which is the upfront funding, gap funding, and the credit building opportunities. And I fast forwarded to Angie to talk about her and her hearing aid. And this is how individuals, when we go out to partners, we say that they can get started by giving us a call. And that, I kind of rushed it. I want to make sure, I know I had a short time, so I want to make sure I got that all in. But again, thank you. I just will conclude with thanking Vision Bank and Danielle so much for being part of our community and our organization and helping us fulfill our mission. I'd like to thank each of you because I can't see who's all in this session, but many of you in the room helped us as we designed our strategic plan and the programs to be able to serve Iowans. Marty was extremely helpful, and that he and our partner Easter Seals of Iowa, Tracy Kinniger, they gave me some really honest feedback about what can we do to make a difference in the lives of Iowans, just like Paige has been doing and for a long time and passionate about what we do. I'm just as passionate, even though I've only been here for almost 2.5 years. So thank you, Marty, for giving us the opportunity to share what has been happening in the last couple of years.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks so much, Anna. Does anybody have any questions for Anna? You can go ahead and use the raise your hand feature and we'll can unmute you, or just go ahead and unmute yourself.
We covered it all.
You must have.
This is Angela from Texas, and I'm a new grantee and still trying to figure out how to make my program work. And I've had a difficult time connecting with a financial institution that gets what this is. So wondering if Danielle has either ideas of who I might connect with in Texas or ways to present it to financial institutions so that they can wrap their head around it better. You want to work in Texas? I'm open to that too.
Yeah, so I don't have any connections in Texas that would be very helpful to you, but one of the things that you can do to kind of take it, sorry, I just got a call that interrupted me here. But one of the things that you can do to help your case a little bit is propose a partnership with a bank based on their CRA, which is a Community Reinvestment Act participation. Banks are required to show that they are providing financial education, affordable loans, financial donations, and everything like that back into the local communities. So if you go that route with it, you'll probably get a little bit more interest from financial institutions. Otherwise, I would really, really lean on that financial education aspect. I don't know what it's like in Texas, but I know the state of Iowa back in 2019 changed the laws so that all school districts, homeless shelters, and several other nonprofit organizations now have to provide some form of financial education. And they are partnering with local banks and financial institutions to do that, since they're not necessarily the content experts. So that would be my advice there.
Okay, thank you.
Danielle, yes, anybody else, just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thanks for the presentation. This is awesome info and well done on the partnership. It's Molly from Montana. I was just curious, it sounded like the forgivable loans right now are just for people with hearing impairment. Is there plans to expand that to other AT as well?
Yeah, so the Vision Bank is just anything related to hearing impairment, but because of the loan, because of the grant, we designated part of the lending dollars that were allocated to forgivable loans. So that it can be any kind of assistive technology, up to $3,000 is forgivable.
Very cool. That's great. And Angela, I'll chime in too, just because I know how hard it can be to find. Our partner here in Montana is a nonprofit financial wellness organization, not a bank. But I've got backup partnership at one of our credit unions, and they have been promoting themselves really heavily with values-based banking. That is part of their mission, and they donate a significant amount of money every year to nonprofits, and they're kind of my backup if we need them organization, but that might be a good way to go if you have some credit unions in the area to approach too.
Yeah, I shopped some of the nonprofits and they weren't particularly interested of the ones that I found. And after we had that one webinar with just the new grantees, I went looking specifically for a nonprofit that, like you had, that was, their whole point was to increase financial literacy. Did not find it in Texas. And I have been talking to some credit unions, but it's still, I don't know if it's the COVID thing or just because it's an odd, what is this AT stuff or what, but it's been a little bit like pulling teeth, and I'm like thinking, what is it, my hair? I don't know.
Keep it up, you'll get there.
Right, thanks.
I think also is sharing the recipients that that receive the assistive technology. So going in and sharing the stories of how it makes a difference in the lives of those that you serve is really impactful, because I think people may not be able to relate, but when you share a story of a recipient whose life has changed, people want to be part of that, I think.
Anybody else have any suggestions, ideas for Angela?
I have a question. How much money over the course of 1 year do you figure you give away in forgivable loans? And also, where does that money come from? I'm just thinking we operate off of a fixed amount grant that we have. If we just started giving it away, then in very short order, we would have no money to operate off of.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we just started that forgivable loan, really marketed it in January. We had a news story on KCCI that said, Iowa Able Foundation is offering forgivable loans for cars. And we got like 1,000 phone calls. And so we had like, well, but I think what we do is, again, the forgivable loan is a grant from Vision Bank. And then also the designated amount of the grant that we received, we put that towards forgivable loans, which is only 20% of what we received. And then we just started a campaign to reach out to individual donors to help us replenish the forgivable loans funds, because we know those we're never going to get back. So once they're out, they're not coming back to us, and have built a, not built, but created a campaign to go out to individuals to explain, to make the case, basically. So that brochure just got finalized, and we met with 3 donors this week to talk about that. We're calling it the Empowerment Circle. And it's been a pretty, I mean, it's only been 3 donors, but they each committed to giving a gift to help support that loan fund. And the Empowerment Circle, we started at $1,000, so it's a kind of a major gift campaign.
Didn't you say, Anna, that you thought that will also, just in terms of a marketing tool, draw attention to your program overall? Yeah,
again, that one news story, our phones are ringing off the hook. So if you just say forgivable loan, it doesn't matter if even if we had given the correct information that was, it's only for assistive technologies, only for 3,000, you hear what you want to hear. And so we just got phone call after phone call. So we're trying to do a better job of communicating exactly what that forgivable loan means. But what it says to our donors and to our stakeholders is that there's a need. So we can't keep up with that need. And because of COVID and the global pandemic and people being out of work, not only do you have a disability, but then you have people who are out of work. And so it just speaks to the urgency of why that forgivable loan is so important.
So Vision Bank provides the actual financial education, training, counseling piece?
They can provide volunteers to do that. We provide that. I'm sorry. So we provide that, but also we have a partnership with what's called a Financial Empowerment Center. And so they received federal dollars to be able to, that's why we're part of that FDIC conference as well. So we do, what do you call that, referrals, and then they take on the clients depending on how many they can take of ours to provide that financial counseling. The big thing that we do is make that plan with the individual, and they have to follow that, and the Financial Empowerment Center and those financial coaches make sure that those things are being completed.
Any other questions for Anna? Or in general?
I do have one other question. If you said that you supply employment equipment, how that must be what kind of equipment is that that doesn't end up supplanting vocational rehabilitation services?
Oh, that's a great question, Wendy. So the loan that we just approved, so the employment loan, the Voc Rehab was able to cover the actual materials, but they weren't able to do the labor, and they weren't able to do. So that was a partnership actually between Voc Rehab that was able to put up $20,000 of support. There's this thing called the K Fund. And the K Fund is providing part of the collateral for our part of the loan, because it was a risk that we weren't sure that our loan committee was going to approve. But they put up dollars because of Voc Rehab, working with them to have a solid business plan. And then us willing to put up a loan to help support their equipment, to make their salon accessible, and to help, the one is owner is deaf, to be able to make sure that there were services or assistive technology to help him with his customer service. So every piece that the Voc Rehab wouldn't be able to support, then we provide that supplemental funding. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That's great information.
There are a couple of programs that had, for somebody that was already employed but still was eligible for VR because of a hearing impairment. They had a sliding scale based on the person's income, and so the person was able to take out a loan, an AT loan, for the remainder of that amount, whatever that amount was.
Yeah, that gap funding is important. So we are able to do that, and also if you need the upfront funding. So we work with Voc Rehab where they're waiting for reimbursement. We provide the funding up front and then are reimbursed by the provider.
Any other questions for Anna? I wanted to mention that because some of you had completed the survey that we sent out a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought I'd touch on some of those issues because those kind of reflect what some folks are interested in, just in terms of issues or what they're working on. We asked whether states had created a mini loan or micro loan. A couple of them had. Of course, Oklahoma has for $2,000 or less with a 3-year repayment plan and some additional flexibility in their credit criteria. Northwest Access Fund actually had created a COVID-specific resilience loan with 0% interest and a deferred first payment. A couple programs we asked about if they'd created or done anything new as far as their financial coaching or education. A couple have the Maryland program is in a partnership with the Maryland Cash Campaign, which is an entity that provides all sorts of services, help with taxes, with benefits planning, financial coaching, kind of a wide variety of areas. And then Molly, you said that that you have instituted no-cost financial coaching, enrollment in a financial wellness program, and free assistance through a debt management program, right? In terms of, we asked whether states had seen a difference in the first 3 months of 2021 compared to the last 3 months of 2020. And 5 of you said that you saw an increase, 2 said no change, and another 2 said that you saw a decrease. So I think that's good news, hopefully, that people are accessing the service still. In terms of other areas that folks were interested in, and I think we want to maybe address this in our next meeting. I mean, one thing, of course, I mean, you all can guess. I mean, marketing is always something that people want to know about what other states are doing. So I think we'd like to talk a little bit more about marketing and outreach. And then the other thing we had some questions about just recently is just interest rates and what states are doing interest buy downs I think Oklahoma, Massachusetts, and Utah, I think have interest buy down programs, but just in terms of some programs having still pretty high interest rates as far as what they're able to offer to their consumers. So I think that's another thing that we want to kind of have people share about what's happening in their states. Are there anything else that pops into anybody's head as far as something you'd like to hear more about from other programs? Just unmute yourself if you have anything. I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Marty, this is Alicia. I would be interested in the programs that are not collaborating with Financial Institute and are running their financial loan programs in-house.
So just direct loan programs?
Direct loan programs,
Okay.
yes.
Anything else? Well, one thing we'll do is we'll send out a survey just in terms of the webinar, the meeting. If we'll have one question about anything you'd like to hear in our next meeting, and we'd like to schedule that for Thursday, May 13th, and we'll get out that information as far as registration information also, and also remember that on the state financing listserv, if you have questions that you want to ask anybody else, we'll go ahead and make sure we put that in the survey too. Then definitely feel free to do that. That's a tool where I think states are able to get a lot of good information from other states. So I'm going to give it just another few seconds and talk slowly here, but I do want to thank you. Thanks so much, Anna, for putting together your presentation. I think it's really interesting perspective, and you guys obviously been involved in a lot of change over the last year.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Wow.
Well, the other thing I'll just say that we do from a marketing point of view is that we started a podcast with a radio program to be able to talk about what we do and bring on guests to talk about assistive technology, but also just disabilities in general. And that has been really helpful to be able to get the word out about what we're trying to accomplish. So that's, if you have a community radio station, I mean, that really was helpful or has been helpful.
Great. Okay, well, that sounds good. Well, just any ideas like that, like I said, we'd like to recruit as many ideas that we can for those issues. And if there's other areas that you're especially interested in hearing about from other programs, we can certainly provide that also. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic afternoon, and we will talk with everybody later. So long.